welcome to Day 4 of Pacific Women's 6th Annual Learning Workshop. Today, our session will be on PNG Special Parliamentary Committee on Gender-Based Violence, focusing on the update on the status of the GBV inquiry and the next steps. So we hope today you will take away from this session learnings from the GBV inquiry and priorities for action. All our panelists are here today, so introducing everyone, our moderator for today, Ms. Julie Bukikun. Ms. Julie Bukikun is the Assistant Resident Representative of the United Nations Development Program in Papua New Guinea, and she is the most senior Papua New Guinean national at the senior management level within the UN system in the country. We have Honorable Powes Parkop, Governor for the National Capital District, Honorable Gary Juffa, Governor of Northern Province, and Minister Jelta Wong, Minister for HIV and Health, MP Gazelle. We also have Ms. Ruth Kisam. Ms. Ruth Kisam is a community organizer and human rights activist focusing specifically on the areas of sorcery accusation-related violence, or SAV, in Papua New Guinea. And Ms. Marcia Kalinoi. She is the National Program Coordinator for the Family and Sexual Violence Action Committee Secretariat under the Consultative Implementation Monitoring Council. Thank you everyone for coming here today, and we will have all our presenters and moderator on stage now. We will start our discussion.
Good morning once again, the audience, those online throughout our country, and of course here in the room. Thank you very much for having us today. I'm very pleased also to have our political leaders present, those who have been advocates on gender-based violence prevention. I think they need little introduction because you know them very well from the work they've been doing. So we're here to talk about the first ever Special Parliamentary Committee on Gender-Based Violence that you know recently had its first hearing. As you know, it was groundbreaking. Since independence of our country, this was the first time that we've had that Special Parliamentary Committee. I'm very thankful that the members joining us today are part of that. In particular, they're part of the Coalition of Parliamentarians to End Gender-Based Violence. Of course, Governor Parkop is a member of the Special Parliamentary Committee on GBV. That is a formal parliamentary body dealing with gender-based violence through our national institution. So before we get into discussing what happened during the hearing of the first parliamentary committee hearing in May, I'd just like to take us a little bit back to discuss how all of this came to be. So I want to go first to our governor for NCD, Honorable Powes Parkop. If you can tell us a little bit about the journey and how you started to advocate, and in particular, I think we all know it was from last year. Of course, many years of work had happened before, but last year there was a momentum and you were a champion, as well as the others sitting here, wanting to make a change. And you did a lot of work within NCD, and of course, bringing together the coalition. So may I invite you now to share some of your reflection on how you started to advocate and bring together other members to form the Coalition of Parliamentarians to End Gender-Based Violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bukikun, and good morning, everyone. Firstly, I want to say I'm very happy to be here in this Pacific Women's Forum. This is a forum, that I would like to see more such forum, being held in our country, perhaps on a regular basis. But having said that, let me say this. For me, number of factors that compelled me to contribute to what we are doing now in Parliament. First and foremost, for me, being a third-term MP, it's been an absolute privilege for me to be where I am. And part of my goal in trying to leverage that privilege and opportunity is to make sure that we use the opportunity and this privilege as much as we can to achieve, especially national outcome. And so that is a compelling reason why, I have been part of this movement, if you like, or action up at Parliament to get us in Parliament, especially all, 100% men, to address this, major development and human rights issue in our country, gender-based violence and addressing inequality, gender equality especially. But aside from that, for me, it is both personal, also professional, and also having a clear political perspective about our country, all the challenges that we are facing. So if I could try to summarize it very quickly, for me personally, I come, from a background where women are taken, as equal as men, or are recognized and have an equal place in our community. From where I'm originally from, women are loud, and that's not necessarily, negative. They're visible, they're assertive, and they're respected. And everybody knows that, among the provinces in our country, Manus being one of the first provinces to have an MP, woman MP in Parliament. That speaks for itself. But culturally too, I know that when we grow up, we might be coming from a paternalistic sort of a culture. We go into our father's clan, but the reality is that we grow up in our mother's clan. Without our mother's clan, we would not be where we are. It's our mothers who brought us, who raised us, who nurtured us, herself and a clan. I can't remember, being raised too much in my father's clan. These are just formalities. We get there by formality. But in real life, we are raised by our mother's clan. For me too, all my, brothers and sisters, my sisters I'm the youngest. So my sisters were the eldest. They went to school early. They got a job, and they helped us to get to where, for me, they helped me to get to where I am now. I probably won't be where I am if my eldest sister didn't go to school, get a job, help my parents to pay for my school fee. So it's personal for me in that regard as well. But two other factors, being trained as a lawyer, we understand all the framework of the Constitution, our international obligation. I know very early the Beijing Declaration, the movement towards, setting up CEDAW. Yeah, and all our commitments. And then being in Parliament, seeing, the failure of us to take real action towards realizing those noble goals, compels me to, as I said, take the privilege and opportunity that I have. We have to make a difference. We are here now. We can't wait. We can't wait for tomorrow. We can't wait until maybe women come into Parliament. We have to make it now. It's our responsibility as parliamentarians now. We represent both men and women, not just men. And from a political perspective, I can say this to Julie, that looking at everything else that we have achieved or failed to achieve in 46 years, it shows very clearly that unless we start to get the values right, the foundation right, we are going nowhere in our overall development. And development cannot be just about infrastructure. It cannot be just about service. It has to be about values. And the values that are important to us are in the Constitution. The Constitution talks about integral human development. Have a look at it. It says that everybody must be free of all form of oppression and suppression and discrimination. That's the first goal. The second goal talks about equality and participation. This is the foundation of our state. This is the start of our journey. And once we miss that, we're going nowhere. So this for me is also political, that if we, end violence, especially gender-based violence, and violence generally too, and start promoting equality between genders, ending discrimination, not only it will give a wonderful platform to women and girls to rise up and equally contribute to our nation, but the entire nation will equally benefit because we are getting the values right, what is important for development, for progress, for good, quality of life. Yeah.
Thank you
Maybe
very
Julie,
much.
I'll leave it as that one.
Thank you very much, Governor Parkop. We also have the audience who are online and here. They may pass some questions at the end if they have. I want to now move on to our civil society partners to get some perspective and reflection from them. So, Mrs. Ruth Kisam Tindiwi, of course, Ms. Marcia Kalinoe as well. You were both at the summit. So as you know, the coalition was formed, and then with the support of Governor Parkop, Governor Bird, Governor Jufa, Minister Wong, and the others who form the 20 members of the coalition, we went on to have a national first-ever summit on gender-based violence in November last year. You attended as well, and of course, Ms. Kalinoi as well. Could you give us some reflection of the summit? What did you think of the summit and the outcomes? And perhaps from your perspective through the Tribal Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Firstly, I'd like to support what Governor Parkop said. That was back in 2017, towards the end of the year. I was trying to get some traction from the members of Parliament, especially around sorcery accusation-related violence. And I sent a text to him and I said, please, can you get all the governors together so that we can actually do a presentation to them on what's happening in provinces, especially hotspot provinces around the country. And he was very receptive. And he said, okay, I'll get them together. The governors didn't turn up. We turned up at the Parliament House with our logos and everything, and the NCDC gender desk coordinator, Ruth Berriso, and I told Ruth and I said, you see, the thing is this, if we don't have political will in a lot of this work that we're doing, then we won't be able to get anywhere. But now that we have a governor that is advocating for us in this level, the national level, that's the thing that we need. We're working down at the village level, the community level, the local level government, but then what's happening down there, if he doesn't have any connection to what's happening at the national level, then we won't be able to go anywhere. So he started it off by saying, look, okay, let's work together. Let's see how we can get the governors in together and then work around, especially around sorcery, accusation-related violence. So I was really happy last year, June, I made a call. And that was coming from this place where, we keep working in communities. We keep working in our little, in silos, civil society, everyone working in their own little spaces to make an impact. But the thing is that unless the political will is there to coordinate and take charge, our work will not be able to get anywhere, because what we're trying to do is to help government policy, especially around women, in health, in education, whether it's in peace, in security, whatever it is regarding women, there's got to be a political lead on this. So of course, me being me, usually I like making calls. The members of Parliament let me get away with it, which I'm grateful for. But I said, if the government is really sorry, if the Prime Minister is really sorry, please set up a parliamentary committee. Because then you can hold to task territory heads, because you have the power to do that. And you can do that. And we need that. And so when it did happen, to be honest, I was probably one of the most happiest person, because then I knew, Papa blow something take ownership or something blow it. So those of us that are working on the ground, if we have to work with policies that are in place, whether it is the GBV strategy or the Sorcery National Action Plan, whatever it is, the owners are now taking ownership of it, and now they'll be calling to task. If the police commission is not doing anything, then they're the ones saying, why is this case outstanding? If the cases are not being prosecuted, then they can say, so what's the hold up? Where's the bottleneck? Because we're having arrest, but we're not having prosecution. Prosecution that leads to conviction, that leads to jail time, so that we have precedents that are set and that can act as a deterrent. And that's what we need. But then we have a system that is congested or system that is bottleneck, and we're not getting the things that are supposed to be happening so that we have a strong rule of law. So having the parliamentary committee in place is actually something that the best thing that could ever happen, especially where law and order is concerned, because now we can start having traction. People that have violated the law can now be brought to justice, so that we have this political will now that is saying that, look, we might be the political head, but we'd like to see that the administrative system working. Why is there is a bottleneck here in the administrative system? So both of them can actually get to have the job done. So that the last year's first summit was something that was one of the best things that could ever happen in this space. That's what I would say.
Thank you very much. Now I want to move on to Minister Wong. You're Minister for Health and the representative for Gazelle District, East New Britain. You have, and we've seen through your work, you speaking about your first-hand experience of looking at gender-based violence in your province, in your electorate as well, and how it affects women and children, and of course the cost of violence in your province. You were not at the Parliamentary Committee hearing, unfortunately, but your health team did participate, and they presented some very useful information, including a submission to the Parliamentary Committee. So, Minister, today you're here. Perhaps you could tell us and the people listening how you see the situation regarding health responses to gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thank you. The situation at the moment is, to tell you the truth, it's really hard. When women get bashed or kids get bashed and they come into the hospital, we have a law there that the doctors can't report it. So when this happens, it's an opportunity that is missed. So we're trying to amend this law. We're trying to ensure that the doctors can file a report on the incident straight there and then when the incident happens within the hospital space, because it also looks it also secures their time, because in case the father follows the mother or the child to the hospital and takes it out on the nurses, and then we have another situation at hand. These are things that, you know, we talk about our country trying to evolve, but how can we evolve when mindsets don't change? And I'm in agreement with the governor for NCD to putting this parliamentary committee together, and that's why I'm always here to support with Governor Jufa, is because we believe that for our people to become a better, safer, and healthier nation, we have to follow where our mothers have taken us. I'm one of those guys that my father died early in life, and my mother brought me up, and most of what I've achieved in life comes from what my mother has taught me and has brought along. It wasn't easy. She had there was 9 of us biological children, and then she had about 12 other adopted children. And somehow through it all, she survived this thing by herself, and then she remarried again in life, and her partner helped her out. But the fact of the matter is, we've come this far, always thinking that the men will make the decisions, we'll go out there, we'll implement it, we'll make sure that it happens, and everybody will follow. We have failed miserably. We have failed miserably. And it's now in this government, a responsible government, that is now putting the onus and making sure that we go forward with what we want to do with this coalition together. And I'm very proud to be part of this coalition. And I know that there's a lot of laws that we have to change, even in the police laws. I'll give you an example. A kid was killed in Buka. They brought his body over to East New Britain to be buried, but they found bruises on the body, so they tried to do an autopsy on the body, but then the court stepped in and said, oh, you can't do an autopsy. You need to send it back to Bougainville to do the autopsy. These people cannot afford to send the child back to another province just to do an autopsy and send it back. It's not like a bus ride. You have to fly there. So these simple little laws within our constitution really need to change to ensure that we have an equal playing field for all people. I mean, gender-based violence doesn't happen only to women. There's young boys that get belted up. There's men that get bashed up. We have to look at this equally, and I believe that the government, this government, is really pushing the agenda to ensure that it's time for mindset to change. We can no longer wait. Once we wait, if we wait and we're too late, who's to say that the next one will not be one of our own relatives? I'm a father of daughters and an uncle of nieces. I will never allow my children to to go down this thing when I had the chance to do something to change the minds of people. So for me, this is a very serious issue, and I'm in full support of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Wong. And those of you listening out there, if there are any questions, please do pass them to us. Now I want to move on to Governor Jufa. Thank you very much. Again, you've been one of the very active members of the coalition of parliamentarians. You've been very supportive, including working towards the establishment of the Special Parliamentary Committee on GBV. Now, I'd like to ask you, Governor, you've spoken a lot, and we all know, about how Papua New Guinean boys are brought up in a culture of violence, where we say might is right. So when we think of the Special Parliamentary Committee, you've heard different issues being discussed, and you listened to statements. What stood out for you, we'd like to ask? And how do you want to see the narrative change about women and girls, and men and boys in our country? Governor.
Thank you, Julie. I totally agree with everything that has already been said here. You know, I, like Jelta, grew up in a home where my mother was a single parent, and there were a lot of us, you know, that she had to raise, but she was a champion, and she did that, you know, with all the strength that she could summon. And you know, growing up in that environment, you gain an appreciation for how strong our women are, you know. And the sad fact is, when you look at political landscape and you see this huge vacuum, you know, we as a nation are missing out because these amazing resources are not there, you know. And I can attest to that because, as Jelta said from his experience, you know, we saw firsthand how strong our women are. And you see it everywhere you go, everywhere in Papua New Guinea where you go. The women are the backbone of our economy, really, they are, you know, at all levels, you know. And they contribute so significantly to, you know, to the development of our nation and to progress. When I talk about the culture of violence, I have to also add here that this culture of violence is also a new thing, you know, in that, yes, we came from a cultural background where there was violence or extreme violence in many instances. You know, there were tribes at war with one another often, and horrible things happened during these wars and feuds that took place. And yet there were traditional mechanisms in place as well to ensure that the women folk were also protected and they had their rights and so forth, henceforth. At least in my tribe, I knew this for a fact, you know. And I spent a lot of years growing up in my district and in the village there, and I could see for myself that there was a significant element of respect for women. But you fast forward to today, and the culture, the violence that is perpetrated today everywhere throughout Papua New Guinea is just horrific, you know. And I think for a long time we as leaders, you know, and I use this word with a little bit of cynicism, because you have to define exactly what is a leader. Just because we're elected into parliament doesn't make us leaders. So that's another discussion, you know. I agree with what Ruth said. You know, we have to lead from the very top. And I'm proud to say that that is what this government is doing. You know, the government of Prime Minister James Marape, who's leading by example, and who speaks passionately about this. Whenever we have our discussions and whenever in our WhatsApp groups we are talking about these issues, the Prime Minister speaks with great passion about this. And we've got Governor Parkop, who has been a long advocate for all human rights, you know, and he's been doing that before he was in Parliament. I've known him. We used to operate out of 4 Mile, Governor. Every once in a while I go past that office, and I remember once when myself and Belder Nama were locked out of an office in there. But Telecom was kind enough to leave the window open so we could answer the phone and attend. These were days before Parliament. And Governor Parkop had an office upstairs. He was advocating for human rights. He never turned a case away. Any case that came to him, he'd take it. And whenever we ran out of bus fare, we became a case and we'd go and see him, and he'd help us. So, you know, we have champions there fighting. And Ruth, well, I can't say enough about Ruth and what she's doing, and many champion women out there who have been fearless. And they're leaders. They're not elected, but they're leaders. More so than many who are elected, I will add. But again, that's another discussion.
Thank you, Governor. I'd just like to ask you one more question. Speaking in what you've shared with us now, if you could tell your sons and all the sons of this country one thing about violence or gender-based violence in particular, what would it be? What would be your advice to the young men of the country?
Oh, I have a long list of...
Maybe your top two
but
or three?
I'll give you my top 10. Now, look, firstly, respect. And I've taught my sons to respect, because of the environment that I grew up in. I've taught them that respect is ultimately important in how they are going to progress in life. And they have to respect everyone, whoever they are, whatever gender, color, economic background, ethnic grouping, religious background, they've got to respect them. And that is respecting themselves first and respecting others.
Thank you very much, Governor. So then we move on to our other civil society partner, Ms. Marcia Kalinoi from the Family Sexual Violence Action Committee. Your organization, as well as you've done so much work in the country, in the GBV response and prevention space, and we thank you very much for that. I'd like to now ask you for your reflections. Of course, last year when the coalition was formed and the movement, and of course, you were at the first hearing for the Special Parliamentary Committee on GBV. What were some of your takeaways from the hearing? Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I'd just like to make mention of the role of the CIMC. And importantly, an organization that brings together civil society, government, and private sector stakeholders to talk on issues affecting the country and how best to address them. And the Family and Sexual Violence Action Committee has been around since 1999, looking at addressing a very serious issue of family and sexual violence or gender-based violence happening in our country. So for us, the work that we've been doing over time and having seen where we've come in terms of now looking back and seeing a parliamentary committee being established at the highest levels, it's an achievement in itself, because it's over time we have been talking about political leadership and political will, and to see that it's happening, it's actually, I would say, rewarding to a lot of stakeholders, especially CSO partners, women leaders, human rights defenders, women human rights defenders, those who have been passionate advocates over a long period of time and have finally having seen a parliamentary committee established at the highest levels. And also having the inquiry taking place recently, it was a great opportunity to speak firsthand. And I think one of the takeaways that we would like to mention from the Family and Sexual Violence Action Committee is for the Parliamentary Committee to really listen to the voices that have been expressed during the inquiry. I think timing was one of the factors that limited us, but I know there was an opportunity for people to write in and give their feedback, and I know a lot of CSOs have done that. And I believe and I trust that the parliamentary committee members, our parliamentarians, have been doing a lot of reading lately to see the work that's been happening in this country. And we also would like to see how our voices can be amplified through the parliamentary committee at the highest level, and how women's voices can be heard in places where decisions are being made and being talked about. I think that's a big takeaway from us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I want to move back to Governor Parkop. You're a member of the Special Parliamentary Committee on GBV. Unfortunately, the chairman, Honorable Charles Abel, isn't able to join us. But we have this question for you. I understand you will be tabling the report from the Special Parliamentary Committee hearing that happened on 24th and 25th of May in the August session of Parliament. The three questions we have are, what are some of the key recommendations you're hoping to highlight in that report and to Parliament? We also know that you are planning another public hearing set for November 2021, so we hope to hear a little bit of that. And what do you hope to discuss at that meeting?
All right, thank you, Julie. The first report is still in draft. We are going through it, and we hope to have it all polished up and ready for presentation to Parliament this coming session, which will start Tuesday next week. There are altogether more than 60 recommendations. It will probably go up to 70, because we try to be as thorough as possible, addressing all the different aspects of government system and challenges that we need to address in order to contribute to the outcome that we want, and that is to reduce or eliminate gender-based violence and move towards equality. But some of the major recommendation that will be coming up, of course, is to allocate funding to the Secretariat so that the Secretariat can start work. This is very critical. We have a policy that was adopted by the NEC in 2016, but it hasn't seen the light of day. It has been given some funding, but mere small funding that cannot allow the Secretariat to be properly set up and start doing its work. And this is most important and critical, because it's not the job of me and my colleague here to go out there and fix the problem. No, we have to put the system in place, just like we have done, for example, with responding to HIV and AIDS. We did very well. We were able to nationally, at all levels, respond, and the outcome everybody can see now. We can do the same with GVB, but we need a really structured, coordinated approach, fully supported. And we can get there, we can arrive much earlier than we think, we would like to think. But we have to take the first step, and the first step is to get the Secretariat in place and then set up all the structures right down to the lowest level. Funding is most important. We also need to get all the government departments. There will be recommendation also on the government departments. The government has to take ownership of the policy and the strategy. We can't go out there and preach to our people where government, we are not doing it. And all the government departments are supposed to be adopting justice policy and rolling it out, make it part and parcel of the terms and conditions of employment. The government is the biggest employer, nearly how many, 90,000 employees? And if we adopt the justice policy and roll it out, we'll make a big difference already. But the government, being responsible, as Ruth says, Papa something, is not taking ownership and responsibility. It's now only NGOs and CBOs and faith-based organizations taking it, carrying it, taking the burden and responsibility is totally inadequate and insufficient. So there's a lot of recommendation on that. And then there's a recommendation too on the referral pathway. It's broken down. It's not working. It's, the survivors and victims of gender-based violence, they carry more burden, they are more traumatized, from the physical or psychological or other, trauma or violence that we committed on them just by dealing with the system. So we have recommendation on the court system, at all level, village court, district court, up to the national court, and also in the police prosecution and public prosecution. We need to streamline this, clear the system out so that when there is a referral, you get systemized, get justice quickly. The perpetrator is brought to justice. The perpetrator can be, punished, and also an opportunity to change their behavior. And then we have a recommendation in all sectors: health, education, the court system. Of course, support to all the NGOs, CBOs, and faith-based organizations. They've been doing wonderful work, carrying the burden, and trying their best. They are doing wonderful work. They need support. So there is a recommendation on that. And perhaps the other two recommendations I want to mention, because of time now, is, of course, the 5 seats. 5 seats. The 5 seats should not be an issue. 22 seats was too much for men to stomach, and now it's 5 seats. And why is it a problem? Why is it a burden? This is half our population. They have the right to be in parliament, but we know the playing field is not equal. And so we have a recommendation that we must, at least at the minimum, get this 5 seats up now. Don't wait for the next parliament. Now, because we go to the next parliament, there is no guarantee that it will happen. And we are failing our people. We are failing half our population. We are failing our own daughters by not making this decision. So there is a strong submission on that, or recommendation. And then, of course, we have a recommendation too, which is probably not really in all the challenges that we face, not really a priority, but we want to recommend that the committee becomes a permanent committee. Because we have seen that, we have start, stop, because there's no body having oversight over the policy and driving it. So, of course, we have a department there, a minister with the portfolio, but they are not given adequate support and funding, so the minister is a lone voice, and then we keep on blaming the minister or blaming the department. But we as MPs should have oversight over this major important human rights and development policy. So we want to recommend that the committee becomes a permanent committee, so it has oversight, so that, if all of us, lose in the election now next year, at least the work will continue. But if, as it is, we are a special committee, meaning once we submit this report, then our life comes to an end. What happens next? We will wait another 20 years before we start getting traction again? More women and girls need to die before we take action? No, it must stop. And the only way, or part of ensuring that we don't stop, start, there is continuous traction and we sustain action, is to have a permanent parliamentary committee. So that's in sum.
Thank you very much, Governor Parkop, also a member of the Special Parliamentary Committee on GBV. We have some questions coming from our listeners. Some of it you answered in part through your response, but I think one that we all want to hear, and Minister Wong, I'll direct it to, is on the 5 seats. So we heard on Monday that it still needs to go to NEC for endorsement, and several steps still needed. Of course, you're Minister for Health, but in your capacity as a member of the National Executive Council, what are your perspectives on having those 5 seats? Thank you.
Thank you. The 5 seats, when we had our last meeting, we agreed that the Communications Minister, Honourable Timothy Marcia, and I would bring it into Cabinet. We're big supporters of the 5 seats. I believe that the 5 seats will get traction when we bring it into NEC, and it's all the paperwork that's needed. There were some questions that we had before, and I think those questions were given to CICC to ask and put it together. So I'm hoping that it comes in this next week before Parliament, so that we can pass it and then we can bring it forward. But fingers crossed. I think we have a great support team that's putting it together. And with the pressure from the governors, especially Governor Parkop, Governor Jufa, Governor Bird, and some other governors, I think that this will become a reality. So I'm just waiting for it to come through CICC, and then we'll ensure that it goes through.
Thank you very much for your commitment, Minister. One other question, I think I'll direct it to Governor Jufa. So, Governor, you've been on this journey with us as we worked with you. We saw the formation of the coalition, then we had the summit, then the Special Parliamentary Committee hearing on GBV. What do you think we can do, you can do, to influence and get other MPs to be involved? At the moment we have 20. It would be great if we had more. I think people across the country want their MPs to be involved, but what's your perspective? How do you encourage your brother MPs to join in this advocacy? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we already do the best we can. I know Governor Bird, Minister for Health, Governor Parkop, and the chairman himself. We are constantly encouraging our fellow MPs to come and be with us. I know many of them are, consistent supporters. For example, the Minister for Communication, Mr. Marcia. He's usually here. I think this is the first time I've not seen him at such an event. John Cowper tends to come, make himself available. And I think what we need to do is continue to speak to them passionately and encourage them to understand how important this is. And lead by example. I mean, be at these type of meetings, speak, advocate, and make a real effort to bring about the changes that we want in Parliament at that level. So we'll keep doing what we can.
And we thank you very much for your contribution, as always, together with the others. We're coming to the end now. I'd like to just see if there's any questions from the floor. I do also want to just check in with our civil society panelists, if they have any other reflection that they'd like to share while we wait to see if there's any questions from the floor here. Ms. Kalinoi or Mrs. Tindui?
Just going back to the Minister for Health, pointing out a very crucial systematic flaw, and that is where to change laws that hinder people from accessing justice. It's easy for people to access health, but sometimes they're both connected, that we need justice. We can't have peace without justice. And in a lot of our communities, women are now going for compensation because that's the only option that is open to them. And they're not accessing justice fully. One of the examples was about a month ago, there was a case of a 7-year-old girl who was tortured on accusations of sorcery. But something wonderful happened in this instance, and right now the perpetrator is behind bars. She's been charged for serious bodily harm. We're hoping that we can upgrade that charge once they see that she was abused over time, because she's got broken bones that are showing up on x-rays that have been going for the last 3 years. Now, one of the things that happened in this case was that the family support center within the hospital actually were able to get in touch with the police. And they were the ones that spearheaded this, so NGOs came in to help. This is an organization that was helped by part of the hospital, but is funded by FHI 360. And through that support, they were able to have a lot of access to the to the police, that made it easier for victims of gender-based violence and sorcery accusation-related violence able to access justice. But in most cases, the doctors were telling us that, they tell us, this is not something that I can, unless, of course, they want medical report, but then the medical reports cost a lot. And these are instances where, you have someone that has been tortured on accusations of sorcery, 7-year-old, no one wants to take ownership of that. And then who pays for the medical report? Who makes sure this child is able to access justice? Now, we need to have a pathway that is clear. So when these kind of things happen, it's easy because the law mandates the doctors to report as soon as possible when they see that it's either a GBV case or a SARV case, or whether it's a sexual violence case. They're able to actually access or report to the police as soon as possible. And that's imperative, because that's how they not only get access to health, they also get access to justice as well. And that's where we bring closure. That's where we're able to help people systematically be able to get what they need in this kind of space.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kalinoi?
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity to be here today, but I'd also like to comment briefly on the referral pathways. It's an important mechanism, and it's a mechanism in place to address survivors of violence, where they can go for help in terms of prevention and response. But I'd also like to just say, give another perspective to the comment that Governor Parkop put forward, that the referral pathway system is broken. And I'm saying this because the referral pathways works on people, helping people, and it's people who are managing the systems. And people need a lot of support, a lot of resources to make the system work. And I believe the Parliamentary Committee here today it's important that they hear this message, that we need to be able to have resources and the agencies responsible being able to do the work they're supposed to be doing. How do we work together? And as we all know, the more awareness raising that we have, the more people are coming forward. And now that that parliamentary committee is in place, I tell you there is even more reports coming through. And so we really need to work together to help survivors of violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kalinoi. There is a question from We Work on Section 101 of the Constitution concerning the 5 seats for women. I've just conversed with Minister Wong. He will take that with him. He said he can then release a statement later on upon making sure that he's got the right information. There is also another question for you, Minister Wong. What can MPs do to change the mindset of people perpetrating violence from the health perspective?
From the health, from any perspective, I think it's we should lead by example. If you elect somebody within your province or within your district, and that you expect that person to go and lead with a high caliber, with something, with a sense of doing the right thing. So you wouldn't elect somebody that would just go and do the wrong thing. And leaders themselves, they want to go out and show. They should be going out to show people what they can do and what the right thing is to do. And if you lead by example, I think that many people will follow. But in some cases, whether the most rural areas, you know, they don't see you often enough, or they don't come to town, or they don't have TV, and they don't see what's happening around the country. But there is this element of violence that creeps in from when they see it within relatives or within the tribe or something, and you want to stop this type of violence. And the only way is to face it head on. You need to go out there and talk to them and tell them the consequences, see what the actions that you are taking, what you're doing to other people is going to affect your life, it's affect their life, affect the clan's life. And like I always say when I go out into my own electorate, I said, you know, people that get together, band together, make a greater power. And when they start thinking together, they start working together, and the benefits of what you can achieve as a group is sky's the limit. So we like Governor Juffa always says, you know, politicians are that we're not all just we're not all leaders. Everywhere you look, there's leaders. Like, I can give you a perfect example of how I met this lady here sitting next to me. She touched my heart when I was police minister. You know, the sorcery actions that happened, and it all came together by one little girl, you know, that she took under her wing. You know, Justice was the little girl that was abused, you know, and it was very sad. So I made it my life's mission to always listen to her, because she really went out there and took the little girl under her wing. She looked after the girl, you know. I like that in people, you know, and that's where I've learned from. See, I've learned a lot from her that I would never have learned from anyone else. So when we say lead by example, these are the type of things. Not only us, it's pastors in the village, the nurse in the village, the doctor in the village, all these people. And I'm very honored to be sitting next to her. She's one of those people that I've learned at least something in my life that I could do to help change someone else's life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I can say I've got a number of questions here also asking the same. May I just ask Governor Juffa if you have any perspective to offer as well on this same question? Because I have a number of questions here, but all relating to the same. A good leader, you're living by example, you're showing your people. How have we seen positive changes, or are we still working towards them? And if so, what should be done?
Thank you. Well, when you move about in society, you have to understand that there are very important people watching you. and that is the future generation of parliamentarians, the future generation of activists, the future generation of, people who are going to step up and stand up to build a nation. And so they're watching everything you're doing. And if you act in a certain way or react in a certain way, they take note of that. So for instance, in instances like this where there is violence being perpetrated, against women, against children, if you act, they take note of that. If you don't act, they also take note of that, And what we want to do in a country like Papua New Guinea, a developing nation, is to cultivate courage. Courage is what is possibly the most important aspect of leadership that we want to cultivate, because these new generation that are going to come and take charge of this country, they need that. And you are cultivating that by your actions. When you see something that's wrong, you have to act. You have to do something about it. I have, personally, for instance, if I'm driving somewhere and I see any violence taking place, not just against women, I will stop. I'll stop my car and I'll get out and I'll stop what's happening. I've done that a number of times. And I see that the people around that are watching, they're taking note. They realize that what is happening is wrong, and that's what they ought to do as well. When they see acts of violence happening in their society, they also have to step up and do something about it. Now, you mentioned earlier, Julie, about my fellow parliamentarians. Yes. Well, this is something that I wanted to say, but at that point I did not recall it. It came to me.
Sure.
Our voters, we represent all our voters. We are not just representing the male aspect of our voting population, I mean, most of my voters are women, and so we have a duty to these voters of ours, and that's what I want to encourage our, fellow members of parliament to take note of and understand that they have a responsibility to all our voters, not just the male population of our voters, And for those who are voting, you've got to put pressure on your members of parliament. You've got to hold them accountable. They're not gods, No can broken backside na karamol go kamlo, katim ribbon, a broken ground all the time. Hold them accountable. I'll just sum up. I get a lot of criticism on social media. I've got a lot of haters out there and frenemies and enemies, but I appreciate them.
Yes.
Because
yes.
they give me insight into things that I'm probably not doing right, Yes. So I want to encourage them to continue to do this, Get out there and throw your stones at every one of us. That's what we put our hands to do, We may not like it, but it comes with the job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor Juffa. Now, Governor Parkop, I heard the last one now for you. Firstly, the person who wrote says congratulations on the GBV Special Parliamentary Committee on GBV, well established, and it's doing its work now. So they want to ask, in your statement you say, we have to make a difference now, not to wait for women to come to Parliament. They'd like to know, can you speak a little bit about what you mean on that? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Julie. Before I go on to that question, I just want to contribute to what the earlier question that my colleagues have answered. And I want to address it in this way, two ways. First, for us to show leadership and to show that we are serious and exemplary to our people, including our voters, is to roll out the GBV strategy. All the governors should set up the Secretariat in their provinces, allocate funds, and get the system going. That's what will work, and that's what we are demanded to do. And all the open MPs, they go to their district and set up the district secretariat, set up the capacity, put your DSIP into the work and get it up and rolling, and let's make a difference that way. So this is what in our report we are trying to recommend to all the MPs to do this. It's the best way in which we will show that we are committed to ending violence, ending gender-based violence, and promoting gender equality. Only one point I want to say also in that regard is that all of us, being in the coalition and in the committee, we are all not saints. But, we are leaders. And, some of us have been, all of us have been criticized, oh, your record is this and that. But what I want to explain to everyone is that it's a growth for us too, and we are making a commitment. Our past might be something else, but we are making a commitment, and we are challenging ourselves to be leaders now, we are here, we have the privilege and the power to make a difference, and let's make a difference. So I just want to make this, known to our people that it's not that we are saints and we have a clean record. We are not perpetrators. Maybe we are all perpetrators too. But now we have the privilege and opportunity to make a difference. We are leaders and we're supposed to lead. And so we are challenging ourselves as well equally. So, Julie,
Yes.
maybe coming to that question, I think the question, I think perhaps I've answered it indirectly, that we are members of parliament now. We're supposed to make decisions not just about infrastructure and not just about services and all this, but we're supposed to make decisions that, addresses the challenges, and impediments, affecting our people. And gender-based violence is affecting women and girls in this country big time. And it's not a women's issue. It's a human rights issue. It's a development issue. It's about leadership. It's about the well-being of our country moving forward. And that's what I mean by the second part of my answer, that we don't have to wait for a woman to come in and start addressing GVB. It's not a women's issue. It's a human rights issue. It's a development issue. It's about our country. It's about the values that are important to us. Many times, and this is perhaps what we have failed up to now, is that we see the GVB as a women's issue. It's not a women's issue. It's a development human rights issue. It's about you, a leader, you take the leadership on what is right for our people. And that's what I mean by that second part. I look forward to the women coming to parliament. All around the world, you look at the difference the women bring to parliament. Look at Germany with Chancellor Merkel now going away. Very clean record, outstanding. Build the economy, social sector, everywhere. You look at New Zealand. For the first time, Labour Party, one party is able to form the government. Why? Because there's a woman there who's got passion, who's committed, who wants to make a difference. And there's an example everywhere. Indonesia has women president. Thailand has women president. Australia has women prime minister. Now we have Samoa having a prime minister in our region for the first time in the island. Why can't it happen in Papua New Guinea? We will see the difference when it happens. Because women, they tend to be more compassionate. They are committed in terms of corruption too. Men, we are prone to corruption because we start thinking in so many other ways. Women in leadership, they will think about the well-being of our nation, of our people. They will be able to. It's a strategy that I believe too that will reduce corruption in Papua New Guinea if we get women into parliament, in leadership, in management. Let's try women for a change, because 46 years we've tried men everywhere. In parliament, in the church, in business, even in the clan, in distributing all the royalty and SSG and whatever development grants from all the mining and oil and gas and everything. Equal all money, equal all man. That's why we are failing this country. And I have to speak in this way because we are not seeing what is obvious to us. Let's make a difference, and I'm here to make a difference. This report, if it gets to Parliament, we are going to push that the government start taking action on it. But otherwise, at least it becomes a document that I hope that will inspire all of us, inspire the next generation to make a difference that maybe our generation will fail. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you very much, Governor Parkop. Always inspiring. That brings us to the end. I do want to just make a note so people know. The Coalition of Parliamentarians to End Gender-Based Violence is a voluntary group. It's formed by MPs, so we have governors, ministers, and of course open members. Those of you listening, if you want to get your MPs involved, please do check out the website. We can also leave it with Pacific Women to post it, so you see how you can get your MPs involved. The Special Parliamentary Committee on GBV is a formal body of parliament. It's a parliamentary committee. It's a special committee, and it will last up to 2022. So hence you heard Governor Parkop saying that one of the recommendations from him and his committee is to make it permanent. Of course, you also heard there are a number of recommendations, many received through the hearing plus submissions. Hopefully the report will be tabled in Parliament and then will be made public. With that, I'm bringing this panel to a close. I'd like you all to please put your hands together to thank my esteemed panelists. Minister for Health, Honorable Delta Wong. Governor Parkop, Governor for NCD, Governor for Oro, Honorable Gary Jufa. Of course, Mrs. Ruth Kisam Tindiwi from Tribal Foundation, and Miss Marcia Kalinoi from FSBAC. Thank you very much, everyone.